The Morning Report. I'm your host, Finn Judell. I'll be leading you through today's morning call. Stocks surge to records as ceasefire holds despite $110 oil. Seen some pretty stellar results over the last week in US markets, despite what's going on geopolitically, what's going on with the oil price, which obviously has adverse effects on the economy due to energy inflation. But despite that, we've seen pretty great results in terms of the stock price of, you know, US markets across the board. So today we saw a fresh record for the S&P 500, up 0.8%. All sectors are higher. NASDAQ up 1.3% and Dow up 0.7%. The SOX Semiconductor Index up 4.2% to a record, up 55% in 2 weeks. Intel's up 13% on the day on reports that Apple may use it for US-made processors. I wasn't a massive fan of the old Intel Apple processors, but we'll see what they come up with this time around. Hopefully they stick with the M1 design, which has been really great in the AI kind of processing sector. In terms of geopolitically, the US confirmed ceasefire still holds. The UAE has reported that they've seen multiple missile strikes from Iran and strikes on their oil refineries as well. The Defense Secretary Hegseth says the truth is in place. Rubio says it's a defensive operation, right? Ships are, I think, one or two ships might have crossed the strait, but Iran has actually denied those claims. There's really not a lot to say in terms of knowing what's actually going on. There's not a lot of transparency, but the strait is still effectively closed. That leaves oil kind of just moving over here to commodities. Oil stays around $110 and WTI around $103. There's no relief despite the ceasefire. The strait is still shut. Gold is up 0.8%, silver up 0.3%, copper, nice little move, up 2.2%. Crude has come down in the last day, which is very nice to see. Coal is up 0.6%. Bitcoin has made it above 80K, so it's up 1.8% for the last day, but up 7.4% over the last 5 days. It's a pretty tricky range for Bitcoin to cross. But moving on to indexes, Australia has underperformed, and that kind of makes sense given the rate hike of 25 basis points, which was relatively priced in, but it stayed quite flat. It was a pretty decisive vote of 8-1, which marks a full reversal from last year's 3 cuts. Look, a lot of this is actually depending on what's going on in Iran and what's going on effectively with the oil price. The RBA has indicated that they're going to wait and see. The base case is that the conflict is resolved by June, and Brent comes back to $82 by late 2026. But the adverse scenario is, if we see oil come up above $145 a barrel, we're relatively within recession territory, which is something to keep an eye on. It's a tricky one. It is definitely a tricky one. And coming from a macro perspective, from kind of taking a little bit of a segue, US job openings, a little changed in March. Hiring rebounded a little bit, but we're also seeing a lot of layoffs across big tech, which is a bit concerning. Namely, Coinbase announced today that they're laying off 14% of their employees. Across the board, in terms of earnings, moving along, AMD is up 8% after hours. Q2 guidance of $11.2 billion versus $10.5 billion estimate. And the source of that revenue is data centers, which is up 57%. Alphabet closing in on Nvidia as the world's most valuable company, which is interesting. A bit of a battle going on there. across the board, S&P 500 earnings growth running at 27.8%, highest since late 2021 after COVID, which obviously had a massive dip during that era. Intel up 13%, as mentioned. Anthropic unveiled 10 financial services AI agents. FactSet is now down 8%, and S&P Global and Moody's sold off. So Supermicro gained after hours on strong profit guidance. Palantir down 6.99% despite raising revenue guidance. I think that the market has pretty high expectations for Palantir, so it's quite easy for them to miss those. But despite their guidance and them actually beating that, they missed US commercial estimates. And SEC proposed allowing semi-annual earnings as opposed to quarterly, which was, I think, Trump flagged a couple of months ago. Seems to be actually coming into fruition. But looking at what's ahead from a macro perspective, we've got private payrolls on Wednesday, so that's today in Australia, but in the US that is tomorrow. We've got Disney, Uber, Warner Bros. Earnings, Arm Holdings, Novo Nordisk, South Korea CPI, US non-farm payrolls, and the President Xi and Trump summit on May 14th and 15th. And Iran will be on the agenda for that one. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that summit to see what comes out of it. I'm sure the rest of the market will be as well. But look, that kind of comes to an end for today's episode of the Morning Call. With everything that's going on in the US, we've got massive growth across the AI sector, but we've also got these geopolitical conflicts that are causing inflation in energy markets, which have a ripple effect across the world. There is a bit of uncertainty. So we've designed a strategy around that capitalizes on the strength of the US economy while also, tuning in on a bit of, short-term unreliability in the market. So have a look. There'll be a link in the description if you're keen to learn more about that one. But that's all for today, and thank you very much.